The member from Bramalea-Gore-Malton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier. The Members' Integrity Act states that, I quote, "A member of this Assembly shall not accept a fee, gift, or personal benefit that is connected directly or indirectly with the performance of his or her duties of office." The Legislative Assembly Act states that a member shall not, quote, "knowingly accept or receive any fee, compensation, or reward or for or in respect of drafting, advising upon, or promoting or opposing any bill," end quote. The Liberals have created a system where ministers have to use their cabinet portfolio to raise money to meet fundraising quotas set by the Premier and the Liberal Party of Ontario. Has the Premier received legal assurances that the cabinet members' fundraising quota does not break the Members' Integrity Act?
Thank you, Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me once again just say that there has been a set of rules in place, and all parties have followed those rules, Mr. Speaker. We've followed them to the letter, Mr. Speaker, but now we're going to change the rules. And in fact, I've been clear that we were going to change those rules. I said last June, Mr. Speaker, that we were on track to change those rules. We're going to bring in legislation in the spring. I look forward to the opportunity to speak with the leaders of the opposition parties to get their input, Mr. Speaker. I think it's important. It's an important part of the process to hear from them because, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, up until a couple of days ago, I didn't hear anything from the leaders of the opposition. I started last June saying that we needed to do this, Mr. Speaker. I haven't heard anything from the leader of the third party or the leader of the opposition on the specifics about how they would move to make a change to the rules. I look forward to the conversation on Monday, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Ministers of Energy and Finance wrote the legislation to sell off Hydro One. Then they hired a group of bankers and lawyers to help them actually sell off Hydro One. Then the ministers hosted a fundraiser with those very same bankers and lawyers. The group of bankers and lawyers benefited from the sale. The ministers benefited from the fundraiser. Can the Premier not understand how this is wrong and may very well violate the Members' Integrity Act?
Thank you.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I'll just go over the changes that we are going to be bringing forward and the changes that we're making right now, Mr. Speaker, because, as I said, we're going to bring legislation in the spring. That legislation will include a transition away from corporate and union donations, Mr. Speaker, and it's that transition that I'm interested in hearing from the leaders of the opposition parties on, Mr. Speaker, because as I say, we've all been following the same rules. We are all going to be making a transition. We have been following the same rules, and we're all going to be making a transition to a new set of rules, Mr. Speaker. I'm making some immediate changes now. I've made the decision to immediately cancel upcoming private fundraisers that I attend, Mr. Speaker, and in fact, as I told the media, I cancelled one tonight, Mr. Speaker. The ministers will still be able to do small... Ministers will still be able to do small group fundraisers, high-value fundraisers, Mr. Speaker, but there will be two stipulations. One is that it's publicly disclosed before the event, not after the event, as the Leader of the Opposition suggested, and ministers will not be meeting solely with stakeholders.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm concerned that ministers assigned fundraising quotas by the Premier are using their portfolios to raise money for the Liberal Party. And as such, I will be
Deputy House Leader, second time.
to the Integrity Commissioner. Will the Premier agree to participate and ensure that her whole cabinet agrees to fully participate in any investigation?
Thank you. Premier.
Deputy Premier.
Well, Speaker, as the Premier has already said, we've taken a number of steps to make elections more accountable, more transparent, to make donations more transparent, Speaker. And in 2007, we introduced third-party advertising rules for the first time and introduced real-time disclosure for political donations. Speaker, but the NDP has been critical of our attempts to actually ban corporate and union donations. And that's kind of surprising because That's exactly the kind of reform that the NDP in Alberta made, Speaker. They introduced an Act to Renew Democracy in Alberta. She introduced legislation, and then it was sent to committee for public consultations. Here in Ontario, we're actually consulting before we draft the legislation, before we introduce the legislation, because we think it's important that we get this right, Speaker.
Answer.
And that's why the Premier has invited party leaders to come and have the conversation before the legislation is introduced, unlike the NDP in Alberta.